Hi, I'm Steve Bender, Animation Director at Cloud Imperium.
This is going to be the best show.
And this is my partner, the everlasting midget.
Okay, all right. Sean Tracy, I'm the technical director, not of chairs, of content for Star Citizen. That was ridiculous.
We'd like to say thank you to the subscribers for giving us the opportunity here to hang out with you guys and hopefully not screw up too much.
No, I don't think we'll screw up too much. Yeah, it's really nice that the subscribers let us make these videos, really can support us. And these are pretty fun to do, actually, because, yeah, we interact on the live streams and things like this, but this is kind of like direct interaction, which is pretty fun, just question and answer type stuff. So, yeah, really thanks a lot to the backers as well as the subscribers for feeding our families.
Yeah.
Whilst we work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so first question was for you from Timothy Mustard. Could alien armor be retrofitted for human use like a Vanduul chess piece retrofitted to pilot gear?
Right. So, I mean, that's one of those things that sounds really cool. Like, I'm going to take some alien armor and I'm going to retrofit that to me. But imagine going up to Shaquille O'Neal and saying, "Can I put your shoe on?" It would be ridiculously oversized. It wouldn't work. So, really, we don't expect for this to happen. You're not going to be killing a Vanduul and ripping off pieces of armor and just, taping it on me a la, Transformers take my parts type thing. It's not going to happen like that. Now, will there be armor pieces that are inspired by alien materials and things like that for the humans? Absolutely. I don't know exactly which ones those are going to be or what they'll be made of, but
Hopefully
the Vanduul, as they are at least 8 feet tall, right? So, again, imagine putting on, Shaq's shoes or shirt or something like that. It would be like a dress on you. So, no, you will definitely have to have some level of human armor that's created by these alien materials, but you won't be actually taking a piece of Vanduul armor and wearing it yourself. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that's a shame. I really wanted to get that feeling of Shaquille O'Neal sitting in that thing, that giant, walking around.
Oh, yeah, right. You just walk around with this large, torso.
Yeah, it's got to be like a dress.
Boots.
Put it on his jersey. It's got to be like a dress or something like that.
Yeah.
But Sean, what if I'm 7 feet tall?
But you're not, because we actually are very specifically 183 centimeters tall. Is that right?
Really?
I think that's right.
Wow.
Is that how
that's
tall I
pretty
am, or is that how
specific.
tall the character is?
You're definitely not 183.
What are you talking about? I'm at least 183 from the ground.
I'm surprised you can see over your desk half the time.
So what you guys don't know is that Steve and I share an office, sort of. We have a little glass door between us because we both get a little bit excitable on Skype. So Steve might be talking. Actually, the other day you were about something. You were whining a little bit about previewing animations. And, "Oh, Tracy, why can't I preview this animation?" And he hadn't turned around, so it was actually really worked out pretty nicely. All right, cool.
Next question is from Goodwin. We've been told that having variable character heights won't be a feature in Star Citizen. Frowny face, frowny face. What about character width? Are there other ways that CIG plans on allowing us to enhance or diminish the sense of physical presence for our characters?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And on the character height, I mean, we're looking at different things. Whether you're wearing high heels or boots or something like this. Of course, we want the height to change a little bit. But again, it's a bit of a tricky thing without changing the skeleton itself. Now, on character width and having some targets for, a fatter guy or a thin guy, the CryEngine used to have, and blame Crytek for this one, used to have the ability to have thin fat variations. This was something way back in Crisis 1
The
days.
vert colors.
Exactly. Yep. So there used to be, I think it was 8 different channels of vert colors, and within our character editor, we could actually select each one of those channels. And for example, the upper arm would be the blue channel, the lower arm would be the green channel, the midriff would be the red channel. So you would just select that particular channel, and you had 2 variants. So you had a really fat mesh, a normal guy, and then a really thin mesh. And you could just have a slider that actually deformed between them, and that would adjust. But again, and blame character artists at Crytek more specifically.
Oh, definitely blame those character
those guys.
artists.
Basically, What happened was that the way we controlled that was through vertex colors. The problem for the character artists was they want to use the vertex colors for vertex colors. They wanted to actually be able to do the art with the vertex colors rather than using them just as a mask. So actually that sort of functionality was removed from the engine a little while ago. Now, what are we working on to actually do that? With our character customizer that we're working on right now, what I want is the ability to have little control points, basically, that you will control whether it's symmetrical or not, different areas of the mesh. So the midriff, the chest, the shoulders, the arms, the triceps, all these sort of areas. And we're trying a whole bunch of different control points around the character to see how much we want to expose and how much we don't want to. So we could go to town on this. We could have hundreds of different control points. But I mean, at what point is it too much, right? So you will have the ability to adjust your character, adjust your character's face, adjust your character's body. To what degree, I can't really say yet because, well, we're trying a whole bunch of it. And sooner rather than later, you guys will see it. So.
Yeah, we're also working on animations for these sorts of things. So the animations that you see right now for your characters in, say, the persistent universe are the base locomotion set. And what we're planning on doing, and we're actively working on this right now, is creating variants based off of that. So we'll have, depending upon what your character is like, maybe he's a little bit more macho or something like that, you'll be able to customize that portion of your character too with certain variations within his animation to sort of give you that that kind of personalized feeling for who your guy is.
Right.
Stuff like that.
You might want to have a different attitude. You might stand different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always stand like this.
I just stand like this, but I'm not flexing.
Oh,
I'm
man.
not flexing.
God damn.
I know.
You've been working out?
A little bit.
All right, so.
Not really, actually. I haven't been working out at all. I don't think I've worked out in 4 years.
You know,
whoa. Beep, beep. Beep, beep.
Beep, 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 beep.
That would have been a beep.
I walk 3.2 miles every day to work. And then
serious?
3.2
Really?
miles back.
I must walk at least 500 yards. 200 to my car, then 200 from the parking lot into the office. So Jax Ford, this is a question for you, Steve. At what point does an animation added for immersion, deck crew assisting a ship landing, crewmen eating noodles or cleaning their weapon, become an emote? Is it simply a matter of adding a / keyword, or is it more involved than that? Will we be able to use hand signals to guide the ships to the nozzle of the Starfarer? Tactical hand signals, stop, take cover, things like this.
Yeah, this is a good question. It's also related to, there was another question by, somebody else is on there, isn't it? Amontillado. Hi guys, we're aware that the characters will be able to pull others out of the line of fire during combat, but will our characters be able to interact with each other in other circumstances, pushing, pulling, restraining, and hugging? So these two things are basically, the answer to these is kind of similar. So in Star Citizen and in the persistent universe, you're going to start seeing detailed animations for like aircraft carrier launches and things like that. And in theory, making those animations emotes isn't really too difficult of a thing. We have a lot of eating, we have a lot of drinking. You're going to be able to go to places like nightclubs, and there'll be waitresses there, and bartenders, and bouncers, and we shot motion capture for people selling spaceships and stuff like that, like at a car dealership or things like that. The challenging thing is the design side of this, getting this to play well together, and having a connection between the animations. So for the AI, we can control the things that we want them to do, when we want them to do it, and how we want them to do it. But for players, it's really kind of restricting. So anything that we create as emotes, however, you could essentially use as jobs. So we have an aircraft marshal, a guy who sort of goes like this. It's kind of like almost like a workout or something, right? But if we create those as emotes, you could actually turn yourself into an aircraft marshal without it being an official job. You can just sort of go out on the tarmac and start directing traffic and stuff like that.
I think guys do that already. Totally.
The other problem, though, with some of these actions, like the bartending and things like that, are things, it's about interacting with other players. The tricky thing here is even though you can do something, it's about the acceptance of the other player. So if I want to make out with Sean Tracy, he has to accept that offer, otherwise I'm going to end up back in the HR office again. So the same thing is true with jobs and emotes.
It's okay if it's not with tongue.
Well, you heard it here, folks.
No, it's not okay, even without tongue.
So, yeah, I think that's...
It's awful.
It's not making out if there's no tongue.
That's right. Okay, fair enough. This is why I don't go scripted. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, this question is for you, Steve.
Woo!
From Socrates.
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 Sean? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Excellent! Okay, so Socrates asks, will ladder climbing ever be given manual control as is in most games? Currently, we have to wait for climbing animation to play out regardless of whether we want to change directions, stop, slow down, speed up, or jump off. Is this being thought about, or is the current system more or less final?
What's he talking about?
The final.
No, the ladders. In the
right.
In the FPS, you're able to get on the ladder. You're able to climb up. You're able to down up.
So I think the problem is that, and the problem is that they haven't seen a lot of the FPS yet. And a lot of the FPS levels have a lot more ladders within them. So I think he's actually talking mostly about the ship ladders, which are a different implementation, of course, than the environment ladders are. There's a whole reason for this, mostly because they have to be items within the ship. There's an interactive animation component to this. But essentially, I think those ones have, it's like an enter-exit animation, whereas the environment ladders actually have exactly the function that you're talking about, which is climbing up, climbing down, jumping
Yeah,
up.
and it's really irritating when you're getting into the ship because it's like...
Because you're kind of stuck in this whole thing.
And it's like, maybe I'll go out and get a donut and somebody bring me coffee.
And you might be under fire.
So,
but it's
yeah,
like,
exactly. So I think that the short answer is... because it's an enter animation and it functions as an enter animation, that likely you won't be able to go up, down, up, down, up, down off of it. However, the lethargy within a lot of those enter animations drives me crazy.
That was a really good word.
So thank you.
Lethargy.
I had that in my back pocket the whole day.
Really,
I was
you
just
were just
waiting
waiting
to
to use it.
lay
You
it right
saw
down
it
on the
online
ground.
one night.
So we actually are working on creating 3 different speeds. So we have a relaxed walk speed, which is currently what you see in the game for most of the characters. If you want to hit the caps lock button,
just saunter.
and yeah, exactly, he saunters up and gets in, perhaps makes himself a cappuccino or something. And then, but the default one will be much faster. So we're starting to put those in. And then we also have emergency ones. So we had one where the guy runs and he jumps and he clears like 3/4 of the ladder, grabs onto it, jumps in.
Yeah, cool.
And
awesome.
when we captured this, the actor coming out, he actually, because we built the Avenger on set, like full-size height
cool.
sort of thing on set. Obviously, we didn't need the armor or anything like that. Right. But he was jumping out of it from that height and landing and rolling, and everything was cool. And then he missed the land.
Oh, really?
And he jacked up his ankle, and he was out for a couple weeks. I felt absolutely terrible.
Do you think motion capture actors get like workers' comp?
Yes,
I was jumping out of a pretend spaceship
through
the
the
other day.
Union. Through the Union, I think they may get.
Just wonder what
something,
those
but
reports look like.
Through the Sun guys.
I just wonder what the reports look like.
I have no idea.
I was jumping out of a spaceship, and I twisted my ankle. I mean, anybody.
But I felt like absolute because we had, he had a great gig coming up like a couple days later, and he ended up having to call the director and tell him that he couldn't make it because he couldn't walk. But it was 2 weeks later. He was up on his feet and stuff like that. He was awesome guy. But yeah, I mean they put their heart and soul into some of these things and their ankles. Yeah. So we're going to speed those things. We're going to speed those things up.
So
that's
that's the ship enter stuff, and then the ladders again in the environment act exactly like what you've suggested, which is pretty standard to most games. You always want that kind of control because you can't be halfway up the ladder and then decide to jump off and have to go all the way back down.
Yeah, that would really suck.
Yes, it is. That would be super annoying. So cool.
Next one is also from Socrates. On a scale of Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted 3, how smooth and realistic should the final third-person animations look when juking and turning your character? It seems that with more smoothness and realistic third-person animation comes a more uncomfortable first-person view. What balance do you intend to strike? I liked Crash Bandicoot 2.
I kind of did
Didn't
too.
you like Crash Bandicoot 2?
But when you're talking about
that was fun.
Yeah, but when you're talking about the animations and animation director, I mean, you would probably have a much better eye on that one than I would. But
So,
a bit chunky animations and bit.
Those guys are down the street. They're going to come over here and they're going to start beating you up.
No, actually, I know those guys.
The answer is that yes, you're correct. It's certainly going to. It certainly is a problem when you're trying to get what is really realistic third-person animations. When you're talking about something like Uncharted 3, where they're able to spend time really getting those transitions and making them feel good from how your character looks. And then you put that in first person. And what ends up happening is because you can't see your body, you're getting these weird sort of pauses in how your character is moving, and it feels wrong, especially with a weapon in your hand. It feels lethargic. Use it
lethargy.
Again. And it just feels uncontrollable. So there is a balance that we have to get there, so that we start with a capture in third person. We look to see what that looks like, and then we start to break down what are the important parts of this animation. So as the guy's coming in, his squash that comes down like this, the overlap of this part of his body, and we have to start basically dialing the time it takes those animations down, and it really is just a balancing act. Ultimately, when we're talking about the FPS combat, it's the combat that's going to win. Right. In the persistent universe, when you're walking around, we have a little bit more freedom in being able to sort of marry those two, the first person and the third person concepts together a little bit more, and we're able to get away with a little bit more lag, if you will, in first person and stuff like that. But in combat, it really is. We've been working on it for a couple months now, so we've been going back and forth, and let's pull this out, and okay, well that has to get faster. But it can't get faster the way it looks. So we'll cut the time down here, but we'll squash the character a little bit more, so that as we do that blending in and out of that, we're still getting the squash in the character.
I can tell that it's taking every ounce of effort you have not to stand up and start doing your examples. This is a very classic Stephen Bender thing, and I'm not sure you should be bound to the chair.
I know.
I think you should unbind yourself. I think be free.
I say stay.
Be
down.
free.
You want to be out of frame.
No, not that kind of free. Well, I don't know. From Aces,
Studio.
Saldian? Saldian.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Saldian.
Saldian. Saldian.
Yeah, no, it's just the question starts with his name.
Ah, gotcha.
Sorry. Saldian. I have no idea how to say this. Will our character's animation change when injuries are incurred? Yeah, occurred? I don't know if it's my grammar or their grammar, but something's wrong there.
No,
when
it's
injuries
definitely
are
your grammar.
incurred.
You incurred the injury. Their grammar is correct in this instance.
For example, if our right arm is shot, will it go limp and therefore cause us to switch the weapon to the left hand? See? No, that's his bad. That's
Left hand, comma,
or will
he,
no,
she,
see,
limp,
it says,
or...
will it go limp and therefore cause us to switch the weapon to the left-handed?
Oh.
No. Or will he or she limp or move slower if there's a leg injury? Question mark. I don't know why.
No, it's a good question.
Put the question mark.
So yes,
It is a good question.
you'll be having characters will begin to change the way that they move and interact with injury. So if I get shot in the leg, I'm going to start to limp. If I get shot in the arm, that arm will no longer be usable. Now, there's a certain amount of shot in the arm. Like likely one shot will not put your arm completely out of commission, but there's a couple challenges that we have in this, though, in that it's about balancing this. So when I get shot in the leg and I'm moving, how fast am I moving? Because when we shot this stuff on set, we actually shot actors in the leg, not with real bullets, but we threw things at them and stuff like that, right? And,
Just give him the
and
feel.
stuff like that. Give him a good Charlie horse. And then they tried to move, and it actually, whereas it looks good on camera, it's one of those things in first person, third person, where it just felt really slow.
Right.
So within the design, we have injury. So when you get shot in the leg, you're going to be limping forward. When you get shot in the arm, likely we won't be holding our arm down. If I get shot in the left arm, I'm going to want to keep it up here because I want to make sure that I keep my arm above my heart level so I don't bleed out. And that gives us opportunities to do things with the weapon. So for instance, if I get shot in the arm, perhaps I have to go to pistol. So I drop my rifle, I'm going to draw out my pistol, but I can't go to two-hand, so I have to go one hand, right? And how does that change your accuracy with the weapon when you move with the weapon and things like this? If you get shot in the right hand, you're holding the weapon in the right hand. What the hell happens?
What about things like a reload and stuff like that too? So I guess you'd have to have some level of one-handed reloads. You'd have to have all these kind of things, right?
Yeah, we had our one of our mocap actors is a special operator, a British special operator, and he did this really badass one-handed reload with a Glock. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think all the British.
Really? Do you think they have like it's like that?
I don't know. It just sounds
thing?
like
sort of like the Kingsmen, right? Where they all go.
Oh,
into
it's totally like
an
that, and they all have umbrellas.
Right? Exactly.
Chris has a cappuccino.
That's got to be it.
He is.
You got to
It's a
watch
weapon.
out with that.
Yeah, we'll watch him.
So, what were we talking about?
Special operators.
Oh yeah. So we had a Glock, and he was doing this thing with this Glock where he had ammo kind of like this, and he would eject, and this would go in, and then he would like grab it in this funky grip and go.
Holy shit.
Scrunch it together like this. The slide would go back, and then it would pop up. The whole gun would pop up, and he'd catch it in his hand, and he'd be able to fire. It's fucking.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, and he was just sort of waiting for the next take, and I saw him doing this. I was like, "What the f- is that?"
Yeah, do it again.
Right, do it again. Do it again. Come here.
Turn on the camera.
Get the camera on this.
Awesome.
So yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have a lot of that stuff in the game.
So yeah, I think the summary is yes, you will have animation change when injuries are incurred. Awesome. Cool.
And good grammar. Don't let him tell you otherwise. So, next one is for you, Mr. Tracy.
I'm so excited.
You'll notice it's not for me and you. It's just for you.
It's just me.
And it's UCIG. And this is from Alien Eagle.
Good one. Alien
In
Eagle.
regards to collisions, I really love how every object has collisions right now. However, it seems there are a lot of times we fall through hard objects, including our own ships. I've had that happen a couple times. My 325A after every EVA. What are future plans to create a more reliable collisions?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good point, and to talk a little bit about this and why it happens. So you guys are aware, most of the ships now have the local physics grid within them, which is, you know, a very sparse grid that has just local physics world information. So it's a little island sitting inside a bigger island of physics.
Islands in the stream, that is what we are.
Well said. So basically, what's happening when this happens? So it's only going to happen when you do a pass between the local physics grid and the world grid, and going back and forth between them is basically a really tricky thing for us to deal with, because it's not only dealing with the player that's going back and forth between, it's any forces that are going in between, and even trickier is that the bounds for that local physics grid actually exists on the asset. So on the ship itself, we built it into the weapon, built it into the actual ship script itself. So what's usually happening here, and it's usually one of two things. It's either the code has been a little bit messed up in terms of when you're passing between these things, dealing with transferring all the character attachments and everything. And if all of that isn't transferred over, you're going to fall through. The other times that this happens is when the asset itself has gotten broken in some sort of way. Or, even worse, that one piece of that asset hasn't streamed in yet. So that's a big problem. So sometimes we will get the mesh in, and the local physics grid information doesn't come in. And usually that's what you're seeing. In a lot of the PU releases, a lot of the PTU releases, we ended up in this sort of situation with a couple ships. So the way you can kind of tell what's going on is if it happens with every single ship, that's probably the code. But if it happens with just one ship, well, it's probably just the asset itself. So these are kind of just normal teething pains, though, when you're trying to work on a physics system like this, just because there's so many interdependencies and complexity to passing all that data in and out. And it gets really crazy when there's, 3 levels of nesting or something like that. You've got an Idris, which has a Connie, which has a Merlin. It can get pretty crazy. So just dealing with every single situation with that, it's pretty normal teething pain. So I would say the future plans to make it a little more reliable is just to fix the bugs with it, really. And as we run into them, absolutely we fix them. So
Fixing bugs, that's what we like to do.
fixing bugs.
Squish them.
Squish.
Going on bug hunts.
Hi, Steve. I would like to know how FPS Combat will feel when done. Can you explain how the character is going to move around, take cover, and which FPSs do you think the closest analog to what you are creating is?
So, how the character is going to move around and take cover. So in Star Citizen, our character does take cover. He does have actually cover animation sets. So we have him come up to the cover object, and when he gets there, he's using his idle animations. The weapon then ends up raising. Now, it's not technically correct to
Why is
raise
that
your
not
weapon up
technically
towards your head so that you can blow your brains out or something like this. But for us to be able to allow the players to read what is happening, it was important for design to be able to see that weapon. So we're bringing it up here. We're trying to be nice and safe with it. And then you can move back and forth across that cover object and around it and everything like this at will. Now, when you hit an edge, what happens is your character is going to then go from whatever that position is to another, the weapon's going to move to another location. So say I'm going to my left-hand side to let me know that I'm at the corner of that cover object. And then I can peek out, or if I go to aim, I will then step out
Yeah.
and come around this corner and try and fire.
Right.
What is the closest analog to what we're creating? So
That's tough, huh?
Yeah, it
Because
is.
None of the shooters really that are out, anyways, are third and first.
Yes.
And
it's-
well, with the expectation that you can really play in both. You know, like there's some that you can bounce out to third and see yourself, but
Yeah,
you're not playing
there's
for
a
third.
distinct connection within Star Citizen that doesn't exist in a majority of first-person shooters, where the third person and the first person assets are the same assets. And that took a lot of sort of engineering and figuring this out. And
I like how you called engineering our chasing the tail.
it actually came down to just a day in Frankfurt, and
I explained it on my. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you, but I had a little explanation to the subscribers about Evo's one line change, and then the little meme I did right after the fact, the 1,000 man hours I do in one line, you know. But it was pretty cool, and like maybe it is interesting to talk about the first person, third person thing, and it does go totally in line with this, only because we had tried for years back at Crytek to kind of get this right, right? And this it kind of started in Crisis 2. And like you know far better than I did because you worked with Evo and other people at Crytek, anyways, about it. But it started in Crisis 2. Gave it a try.
Yeah, we tried.
No, this is not going to work. And then
We were
maybe
because the problem really was an engineering issue and a time issue. During Crisis 2, we were making a lot of major changes to a lot of the different systems, and it just. There were certain promising things about it, but there were going to be issues with it. We could see those issues, and we certainly found that we couldn't solve those issues within the time we had to ship the particular product. But changes that happened between Crisis 2 and Crisis 3 in the way that the third-person character and the AI aimed actually sort of set the groundwork for what we're doing here, because later last year we were looking at some of these issues and connection issues, and we're trying to figure out why this wasn't working and why this other thing wasn't working, and we saw we were like, well, the custom aim joint isn't being used properly. So once we got that working, and we were able to get the aim system working properly, it was a simple matter of tying that to the camera setup.
Right.
And now we had control of being able to make adjustments within first person that made the same actual adjustments in third person. So where you are pointing the gun in first person is exactly where he's pointing it in third person. There's zero difference
and there's
between
usually
those.
such a huge disconnect with that, right?
It was such a simple. It was one of those sort of answers where you just look at it and you're like, I remember standing there in the room and going, well, can't we just blah 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 and tie this to this? And it was like.
But you've been in game development enough years to know that as soon as somebody says, "Can't we just?" it's usually not. Can't we just? So, but I'm just.
But it was
in this case.
In this
actually
case, it was right. In this case, it was just like, huh. And
yeah.
then
So
Eva went back. He did the test
one
on it
line,
and totally
that
fucking
was
worked.
it. Yeah, which is super awesome. And I remember that really initial naive sort of implementation. Literally, take a camera, strap it onto a joint, and see what it looks like. And like it looked cool, but then you realize I'm getting kind of sick. This doesn't really make sense. And then. So it's good.
So, what is the FPS Combat gonna feel like? So, Star Citizen, from a feeling standpoint, is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the games that you've typically played. It's not really a Call of Duty, but then again, it's not a Battlefield 4, but then it's not an Arma 3, but then it's not a Crisis 3.
Yeah, right.
We're taking sort of pieces of each of those and building something unique. And we utilize what I like to call competitive analysis. So what I'll do is we're playing something. So, for instance, we're working on the cover.
Yeah.
And something is not feeling right, or it's not playing right, and I'm trying to explain what it is that I'm looking for, or what is wrong here. So what I'll do is I'll go get video from competing products out there. And I'll take those videos, and then I'll also take examples of videos of myself doing something or animations that we've done, and really break them down and go, you see what they do here? You see what we're doing here? This thing isn't working here, right? And this is how we can fix it. I like what they're doing over here. So it's kind of hard to sort of.
It's a nebulous, question. So how does it feel? How do you explain that?
Yeah.
Right now,
and that's going to change.
Maybe
over time.
maybe I'll give it a stab, because it's somewhere between. It's not a Twitch shooter by any stretch. It's not a Quake. It's not a Doom. It is not a fast shooter by any stretch of the imagination. Can you look around fast? Yeah, definitely you can look around fast. But the things are not moving at that rate. It's just not that quick.
No, we want to promote ADS.
Exactly, right? Aiming down the sights, you want to promote some tactical movement, you want to promote team play. So it's definitely somewhere between the Battlefields and Arma, where it's not full simulation, but it's also not so simulation heavy that it becomes tiresome or frustrating.
Yeah, and there are some things that you'll see. You may go, oh, hey, I know that from say Crisis 3 and things that we do with the character in the game, because it's a engine game. The same, it's a similar engine.
Sure.
So even though we've heavily modified it.
Yeah, and even this bit of it, which is the most fundamental sort of part of the CryEngine is the first-person aspect of it, the first-person character aspect of it. And we've kind of redid that.
Yeah.
Which, it probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Like, the easiest thing to do would have been to say, all right, just copy-paste Crisis 3 and go to town. But, again, with this game, we want it to be something new, something unique, and we're not afraid to give that a try.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and I think that's an important point anyways to make along that. Maybe, and to extend the question a tiny bit, I did like one of the examples that just to bring up an example that we were looking at between Battlefield and our turn in place. So, and still, we're actually still in a very, very real shape that we kind of have to fix our turn in place, which is not as good as it could be in both our opinions, I think, just our general turning, because Battlefield has a really interesting system of you will be standing there and your character is allowed to rotate almost 180 degrees before his feet do anything, right? Like you recall this, we were taking a look over multiplayer.
I remember you shooting me constantly while we were testing.
Yeah, and then I was prone and you shot me in the face and then you teabagged me a few times. It was, I remember this too. But yeah, so we were taking a look at it, and what happens with our game right now in Star Citizen is after 30 degrees or something like this? I can't remember what the foot turn start is. We've got different animations for 0 to 45, 45 to 90, and then 90 plus, I think, or I might have gotten that wrong.
It's around 180.
30, 45, whatever. And basically, as soon as you're outside of that rotation, we start adjusting your feet so that you can align to that new position. Now, I kind of like the way that Battlefield does it, because you don't get a lot of this foot shuffling, which a lot of people are not really liking with our game right now, because, one, there's a bug where you can get stuck shuffling.
Yeah.
But mostly because, and again, this came from other bugs with the camera. You could kind of see yourself shuffling, and you don't really see that anymore with the fixes that have gone in. But it does almost make a lot more sense when you're holding a weapon that you wouldn't just rotate 30 degrees and then start doing that. You would probably go just about as far as you can go, and then you would make that rotation. So it's things like that, just to sort of wrap an example.
Yeah, we're
into
taking that. To that extent, we're taking things like originally it was 30 degrees off center. Now we're going, okay, well, for instance, when we're in relaxed and we're looking, I can go like this, I can go like this, I can go like this, and now this is just not. I can go all the way over here, but naturally, if I'm if you're here from me, I'm just going to, at this point, I'm going to start to rotate.
Right.
Right? So it's a balancing act between both the no weapon, so when you're relaxed, that behavior is a little bit different, and the having a weapon. So we want to remove a lot of that ticky, 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 ticky coming across, but we also want to make sure that when I am aiming, and I'm going to go, I'm going to aim this way, that as I come this direction, right about here, so it's I don't know, maybe 60 degrees or so, I'm going to attempt to reorient. So
Right.
that way we're still keeping the feeling of realism in the character's poses when he's firing and stuff like that.
Right.
But we're not getting that ticky, ticky, ticky.
Right,
sort of
right.
situation.
Perfect. So hopefully, Daz, that was enough
Babbling.
info there to give you an idea of what we think it's going to feel like. Of course, we have our the way that Chris wants it to feel. We have the way that we want it to feel, which are all pretty much in line. So I think we'll get there soon.
So let's go with Big Dave.
I like that Big Dave question.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, this question is from Big Dave. In regards to melee combat, is there a blocking parrying system in place for melee combat? What games / movies / etc. will you guys be looking at in order to get a base of how those animations look? For instance, Chivalry has a somewhat rigid but free feel to parrying animations, while other games such as Total War have very detailed combat maneuvers, but they are fully scripted when zoomed in on soldiers. So the TLDR of that is, will we have a highly scripted melee combat motions or less detailed ones that allow for more player movement?
I think overall the concept behind Star Citizen as a first person combat game is to give you freedom. So we don't want to go for these
Quick time events?
these
I
quick
hate to
time
say that
scripted
because of all the
events
tomfoolery with Rise and
things like that. But we are looking at currently we're talking about the design for these sorts of things. So in regards to what we're looking at for reference, we're looking at things like Eskrima and Kali and various different military trainings and things like that. We've been talking about jabs and swipes and parries and all these things like that, but we do want it to be a much more fluid sort of thing. The same sort of thing would end up happening if, say, you got into a fight at a bar in the persistent universe, right? You know, pull out a knife and be stabbing somebody, but you certainly can take a,
I guess it depends who you are.
I guess.
Well, no, I just curl up in a ball and cry a little
Perfect.
bit. Each one of my bar fights.
We'll let me write that down.
Curl
up
into
in
ball
ball
and cry.
In ball behavior. Curl up in ball behavior.
And
Okay?
cry.
And cry.
Perfect.
And cry. And we will call that the Sean.
The Sean. Okay.
So yeah.
All right. That's a good answer. Okay. So this question is from Ethnian. When all of this is over and done and we're all in Star Citizen playing together, what do you see yourself doing in the completed game? Will you be a pirate? Will you run security for some major organization? Or will you be a lone bounty hunter looking for his next big score? Basically, what roles do you see yourself fulfilling once you're let loose in this amazing title that you helped create?
Well, for me, my handle in Star Citizen is Ghost Monkey Spy. And I will be running a militant group called the Ghost Monkey Extraction Unit. We specialize in the extraction of personnel and information from highly sensitive locations. If you have found us and you have need of our services, leave us a message at Bones' Bar on Terra.
Wow.
Grando omnem spiritum simia, long live the Simian Order.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can't top that answer.
I'm going totally
that's
roleplay on
amazing.
it.
It was
Totally
amazing.
roleplay.
I want to be part of the Simian Order. How does one become part of the Simian Order?
You just
So
have to, yeah.
I had an answer to this question, and it's completely changed now. I would like to be part of the simian order. Could I be Ghost Monkey 1?
No, Ghost Monkey 1 is actually the entity which brought light to the void. And you can actually learn more about this.
Yes.
By searching for the simian order on the forums, actually, for the organizations.
Awesome. So when all of this is over and done, I will be searching out the simian, the great simian, the grand simian, and becoming part of the order of. What was it?
The simian order.
The simian order. That's correct. So that's what I will be. Yeah, that's what I will be.
Yeah, I hear that the grand simian actually has an aurora.
He does.
And that he travels the galaxy spreading the word of the light.
Is there a? Never mind. I guess we'll get too deep into that.
Yeah,
Let's just leave that one alone. The first time that we've given that a go, I think it was mildly successful. We didn't get too hijacked, too out of control, so that's really good.
We've only been here for 4 hours, Sean.
Yeah, really, they haven't seen that we've been here for 4 hours. Maybe they can read my watch.
They're like,
so
hey,
that might be a
where
problem.
are they
See,
talking about?
no,
Like 10
see, this is
minutes.
what's
No, they really
happening
edited
every
it down
fucking
to
time. So, guys, thank you so much for subscribing to this. Thank you so much for allowing us to do this. If you guys liked Steve and I answering your questions, trying to get through the questions without,
Send a check to Steve Bender at cloudimperiumgames.com. Write it on the side of a Porsche 911. Yeah.
And that's kind of it. But yeah, really, guys, thanks a lot for doing the subscription to this stuff. It's really fun to be able to do these things. We had a lot of fun with it today. And yeah, keep throwing in the questions. And thanks a lot for helping us develop Star Citizen. And that's pretty much it. I think we can send them off and we can get back to work.
Yeah.
Ish.
Sounds good to me.
Great.
I need a beer.
I need a beer.
This video made possible by the ICC Stellar Surveyors and subscribers like you.